Thank you. And look, thank you very much for inviting me here. It's absolutely wonderful to come and visit such a beautiful place in the world, and such nice people and such good food. So it's good. Okay, so I'll start off with my talk. I'll tell you a little bit about where I come from and my own background first, so you can understand the context of the remarks I make. So I come from Canberra. I'm currently living in Canberra, which is there. It's Australia's national capital. It's a created city. So it was created between Melbourne and Sydney. And we have wonderful buildings like this, which is our Parliament House. But it's also known as the bush capital because it was created in the middle of the bush. So at the top of my street, I can go up to a park and walk and see kangaroos in the middle of the city. So it's a very unusual place. The other thing I think is interesting to think about Australia as a culture, and I did once write a paper comparing Australia with the Scandinavian countries. Why would I have said that? Is it because we're both so wonderful? Australia is not very densely populated, and the Scandinavian countries aren't either. We don't have big manufacturing industries at all. We don't have, for example, car manufacturers at all anymore. Agriculture was a dominant industry for a long time. The other thing is that we're far away from everybody. So we're not European, we're not the US. We don't really have anyone that's telling us how to think. So I think we feel a lot freer just to do things as we might want to. And I sort of thought that some of the Scandinavian countries were a little bit that way too. And I mean, you're known for being very innovative. And Australia's had a lot of innovation as well. But of course, being a small population base means there are problems. We're far from markets. In recent times, we've concentrated more on service industries, apart from mining, which is still where a lot of money comes from. So this is me. So originally I was a software engineer, which I really liked doing. And then for various personal reasons, I became an academic. And I went to work in business schools mostly. So though I had been doing applied work, building things, I went into environments where the research aims were quite different. So it was more about describing things and so on. And that's caused some problems. So they're my research areas. And just again, so you understand when I make comments where I'm coming from, for those 3 years, 2014 to 2016, I was Associate Dean Research in the College of Business and Economics. So I was working with an office like Theresa's. I had a business development manager who probably had a job very much like yours. Absolutely vital job. And in those 3 years, we had a dean who was very much in favour of innovation. And about the same time, government policy changed, and they decided that Australian universities weren't collaborating enough with industry. So it was a good time to be in that position because we got a lot of support for doing things that would help us work with industry more. And then for the last year, I was director of our innovation hub, where we built behavioural laboratories and were building a design thinking centre as well. So it's been interesting times. Also, Jonas asked us to talk about what you could expect from projects with industry. So I'm going to just reflect on some that I've been involved in to show you the range of outcomes that you could get. And it's partly to show that they're really quite different. So they're not software. I'm in a business school. We don't have a huge number of people who can actually build software, but we can do other things. So this is some of the research that you can get from other departments. So the first one was actually not in Canberra. It was up there. It was in Rockhampton. which is in Queensland, which is a long way up the coast. It's very hot. So now you're getting as hot part of the world as you get cold in winter. We live in, these extremes. So that was a town of about 70,000 people, so a bit bigger than you've got here. Not much industry to work with at all at that time, but the beef industry was there. So the university I was working at then had a project with the beef industry. It was a time when the beef industry was coming up to a crisis. We had these problems with sending our beef to the European Union because there was some disease, and our various components of the beef industry wouldn't work together very well because they were competitors, really. The beef producers didn't get on with the beef processors and so on. And so they weren't managing supply chain management very well. They actually didn't even have a standard anymore for software so that they could send descriptions of animals up and down the supply chain. It had become lost. So we worked on that for a while, and that, in the end, a database was constructed for our beef herd, which is about 28 million animals. So that was a software type project, but really our role in that project was to act as facilitators. So this is a different sort of role for university academics. We were seen as an honest broker. We didn't belong to any particular segment of the industry. So we were able to actually work to bring people together. And then we did some more projects for our various government departments. So both those projects were more what you would just call commissioned research. So we were acting pretty much as how you would act as academics, except what we were doing, the statistical analysis and the surveys, were commissioned so that the government departments could publish them and inform industry about what sort of things they needed to do, for example, to become more innovative. So this project here took 5 years on and off. I had a PhD student who'd come from Bangladesh, and he was very unhappy about the state of IT in the public sector. It was a country where, corruption's a absolutely really bad problem. And so some government departments would get IT systems installed, and then people would just destroy them. Either the workers would destroy them, or management would see something happen to them. And the Lands Department, you can see that picture up there, that's the records in the Lands Department. Now they were given an IT system. An aid program went in and built an IT system for the Lands Department, but it got removed. So you couldn't be sure that you would, if you had a title to your piece of land, that that hadn't been sold to someone else. So what we did there was we got funding from AusAid, that's our overseas aid program, and we did analysis of the problem situation, and that sort of revealed that what was stopping IT being adopted was, this is not unexpected, but lack of knowledge amongst the decision makers in the public sector. They had a very old outlook that they'd inherited from the British, the way they ran things. So we developed policy reports for the government. We developed a training program that they could use in their public sector training academy, and we produced that textbook, which has been written in a way that it's easily acceptable to people in that culture. Another small project, we worked with the SAP Institute for Digital Government and looked at how you develop nudges or behavioural interventions, and we wrote a report with someone from SAP. So this is an example where a practitioner was able to write a journal article with us. That was good, a lot of fun, and that's appeared in 2017, and I just learned this week that it's been the most downloaded article for that journal that year. So, and look, they're very pleased. They use the journal article, they go out to do seminars and consulting with clients, and it gives them, I think they feel, it gives them legitimacy, you know, that they cooperate with academics and are thought leaders. Another project we did here was with one of our defence groups, and there we were looking at how you put people and machines together in teams. It's quite important in defence because you have to make decisions such as, you know, do you let the drone shoot someone without any oversighting by a human being? So that one was done really because they're a research organisation themselves, but they just felt that they needed different people looking at the problem, a little bit more effort brought to being. And this is a bigger one here that's still going, and it's funded by the government, and our aim is to work out methods of helping prevent suicide on Sydney trains, and partly that's a computer vision project where we have a computer scientist who's using CCTV analysis. So the purpose of this is really just to show that, you know, there are really quite a lot of outputs that can come from university industry collaboration. Now, our other outcomes, most projects have led to academic articles. If you're a junior researcher, it might be a bit of a problem, the scale of the output, because they take a lot longer, as anyone here would know. Like the Bangladesh project, I think was 5 years all up, and we got one A-star publication. So that's a problem. What me personally, being engaged in this work, it's irritated me enormously that there's this work I like doing that's valuable, that develops knowledge, and that then many of the journals where I'd want to publish and am expected to publish won't take work that deals with applied problem solving. So that's, you know, a number of you here know that I've done work on methods to do with design theory. Well, that's the reason I've been trying to, you know, sort of try and organise things so that we can go ahead and do valuable work and get more recognition for it academically. The other interesting thing is, because I had those administrative positions, we had at times to try and reflect on what impact our research was having in the world. Now, our government's introduced a scheme where impact's measured by things like patents and IP, and in business school we don't produce those types of things. So that you can see that the outputs that we've got there, though I think there have been real outputs and impact for people, they're quite hard to measure. So that's a problem from a government policy point of view. Some of our work has led to honours and awards, which I think is evidence, you know, again, that it is useful. And another thing is that, just of interest perhaps to people here, is that these projects aren't huge ones. I think compared to Kieran, what's your biggest project, Kieran?
Yeah, the smallest one is €400. But the biggest one, yeah, we come up to like 500,000, 550.
Yeah, see. Yeah, I mean, there are other ones in the university which is millions. If you go over into astronomy, some of the engineering schools. So our projects are quite small. So again, if the government's trying to quantify what we do, one of their suggestions was that they just add up how much funding we got from industry. So, you know, we're at a bit of a disadvantage there. But you can see you can still get, I think, quite a bit of impact from relatively small projects. Now, how to do this? Now, Jonas said we were to select 3 things each. I haven't done that. I've done a few. So if you, again, because I was Associate Dean Research, we had to study this industry-academic collaboration as an academic exercise itself. There are papers like this. It's a whole field of study as to how you get this to happen. This is a model we got. So my business development manager, Priscilla Can-John, myself and another person wrote a paper that was presented at an innovation conference. But these are all the things that, drawing on the literature, that are involved in this area. So you've got outcomes, happy people at one end. You've got processes that have led to that. And you need to consider all these things, really, to get it to work. So you've got to look at the environment. Do you have a government that's supportive of this type of thing? What sort of university have you got? Is it one that actually tries to reward people who do collaboration? What sort of researchers have you got? And what sort of industry have you got? How am I going for time, Jonas? Plenty of time. Okay, so I'll just go through each of these factors. And again, now this is my interpretation of what's most important. So you need to remember it's come from those projects that I've been involved in. So the environmental characteristics that have been helpful is that we do have a government research policy at the moment which means it's trying to make some of the reward mechanisms inside the universities actually reward academics who engage in this type of work. Previously, this has not been the case. And we are affected by the North American system because lots of our people go backwards and forwards. So most people get rewarded for producing A-star publications, whether they're really of any use to anyone, ever. But it has changed, so they're going to try and change our promotion policies so we can get some recognition for industry work. And the government does co-fund projects. So there are, like the European Union, we can get money from the government. Within the university, we have a technology transfer office, and we also had our business development manager. Now that's an enormously important job. That person did all those sorts of things I'll come to in a minute, but so we are getting some incentives within the university now, and this one's again really important. This was the sort of thing Priscilla did. If you want to work with industry, well, with SAP it took us a year to get the contract operational, and I think if we hadn't had Priscilla we wouldn't have got it at all. But it's now got a little bit easier to get contracts going. The university, the characteristics of the researchers varies enormously. Again, we've got people who can see no reason why they should ever engage with industry, and in fact they've been quite hostile at times within my college. When we were trying to do things, they'd just say, "We're not here for that, we are here to do pure research. This is far more important." And they know that mostly they'll get rewarded for publications. So that's a problem. What we have done though is work in teams, and you put someone who has got more of an industry outlook with maybe a younger person who hasn't got experience, and then it would work. The industry characteristics, the people we've worked with from industry where the projects have worked well have tended to be pretty entrepreneurial types themselves. So they've been people who will look around for opportunities. They'll look for getting money from government and so on. And the transactions, relationship building, I think this is again, Teresa's, it's what you were talking about, can take a long time. The Sydney Trains project probably took a couple of years before we got going. We do a lot of that, have guest lectures, workshops like this. Again, the Sydney Trains project, I think, started because someone came to a workshop like this and then followed it up with us. Priscilla followed it up and it worked. And more formal things, we actually moved to having sponsored research and consulting. And the outcomes, if you do this well, more university industry engagement means more innovation, and you do get economic and societal effects. And that picture is of happy people having a party at the end of one of our training sessions in Bangladesh. And it's the custom there that when the cohort finishes its course, they have a concert. And even the quite senior public service people will get up and sing or do some little act. So you know, it's nice. There are rewarding bits to doing this type of thing. So that's me. Thank you.